Thanks for subscribing to and downloading Plant Talk with your host, Fred Howard. Plant Talk is sponsored by Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens in Columbus, Ohio, featuring exotic plant collections and displays, seasonal art and nature-based exhibitions, outdoor gardens, and a variety of educational programming. fpconservatory.org. Now, here's your host, Fred Howard.
Good morning, Ohio gardeners. I don't know about where you are, but here we have some more rain. And that is wonderful as far as I'm concerned, because I think I mentioned last week having made a terrible mistake with leaving my sprinkler on. I know it ran up the water bill, so now if I don't have to pay any more water bills, that's great. Now then, the earth is tipping. Of course, it always does. And right now it's rotating such that our days are getting shorter. We're just a week from, we'll call it midway between the equinox and so on. Along with that, and we'll discuss this later, but the abscission layer is forming.
Oh, my goodness.
Think about that.
Sorry to hear that. Have you seen a doctor about that?
Well, I'm considering it, yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll explain that later. But the days are getting shorter. That's always a disappointment to me personally. I happen to like the sun to be up way before I get up. But that just doesn't happen this time of year and on into winter. December 21, it will be the shortest daylight day of the year. But in the meantime, it's just getting shorter by 2-3 minutes a day. I've never been sure quite what. But therefore, things are happening properly with some water or let's just say the sprinkler shower that you have given things and so on. Plants are starting to go into their rest period. They've had a hot, dry summer, if I've read correctly and retained any of it. I believe it's the warmest record, total period of warm in the state for a very, very long time. That's a little unfortunate for, many things, and especially our trees. They cannot go to the faucet like we do to get water. They can't run from air conditioning this to that. They have to put up with it. And right now, it's going to be up to us to help them get along into and then through winter. We'll talk about how.
And sitting alongside Fred Howard, I am Mark Neuse in our Plant Talk studios. Our toll-free number, if you have a question or comment this morning, 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. That's 1-866-752-6882. And, Fred, I noticed the number of things in colors dropped by about 10.
It has, Mark. I maybe didn't put down the little tiny things that were kind of waning. But at the same time, yes, that number is reducing. A few of the things that have been in color that still are, of course, have fewer flowers on them. So I actually have to hunt a little bit. But at the same time, and the purpose of doing this whole thing is to let people know that we can have color pretty much, 9 months out of the year for sure. 10 is easy. And then as I was instructed many years ago, it's possible to have 12 months of color in Ohio. Color being flowers in this case. And the trick to the one was a gentleman by the name of John Siebenthaler, 65, 70 years in horticulture by the time he told me this. I was so proud I could have 9.5 months of color. And he kind of cleared his voice and he said, "What's wrong with the other 2.5?" Yeah. So I learned a little bit that day, a whole lot that day. John was a wealth of information. Rest him in peace. I wish we could have recorded what was in his head. Wow. The fruit is starting to color up, many things. And one of them, just to mention without setting up any kind of panic, the Japanese yew, one of our most highly used evergreen shrubs, some are females. They form a little round, red, very, very pretty, light red fruit with a kind of a gray gloss over it. And in the center of that is a little tiny green seed. Be careful of young children during this time of year that they don't get a chance to play in among those and get some in their mouth. Now, usually they are so bitter, there's not much chance of them ingesting them, but that little green seed in the middle is not a happy thing to have happen. So just bear that in mind without panic. Keep an eye open for it and keep the little children away from it.
Once again, our toll-free number, if you have a question or comment for Fred this morning, 1-866-752-6882. That's 1-866-PLANT-TALK. We have several email questions that folks sent in this week, and we're also going to talk about roses and Fred's Plant of the Week coming up next. So stick with us. Just getting started this morning on Plant Talk.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Walk amidst tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
Once again, our toll-free number, 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. And, Fred, your plants of the week.
Well, they are 2, and they're typical for the fall period. The one that I used to call a mum simply, or a chrysanthemum, now is called a mesembryanthemum. Spell that one for me. Yeah, hello. Well, mums are still very, very, very popular. They are a plant that first of all, it is a perennial if you plant it in the spring, and if you have good luck when you plant them in the fall. Yellows, golds, rusts, white, burgundy, it goes on and on and on. Then, when it comes to how you have handled them, if you have purchased them in the spring and planted them so that they develop as most perennials will in your garden, and you pinch the tips out every so often, you get a short, fat plant or a tall, fat plant. It'll depend on the kind of mum. Then the next thing that's interesting about mums is they are what's called photoperiodic. They initiate flower buds after a certain day length has been achieved in the negative side. So sometime after June 21, the days are short enough that given mums will initiate flower buds. And then in anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, they will bloom. And that gets a little tricky, but you can, therefore, adjust the kinds of mums you have and where you have them. And you can have a 6 to 12 week period of flowering from them. Well, 12 is a little extensive because usually they will have frozen before we get to the 12th week. But then asters I consider a little bit more common. There are some delightful varieties, mostly in the pinks, purples, and so on. They are all the way from a cultivated plant in our garden to a roadside beauty that just simply comes on this time of year and shows off beautifully.
And let's go to the phone lines now and talk to an old friend of ours. Nancy Walsh from Park of Roses is with us. And Nancy, hi.
Good morning. I am so glad you opened your show with talking about color.
Yeah.
Because I've got a colorful place for everybody to go visit.
I thought you probably would have.
We are into the second full bloom at the Columbus Park of Roses. There's always a spring bloom, and then there's a fall bloom, usually around mid-September, so we are, like, right on track.
Right.
And I was up in the garden yesterday looking around, a lot of new buds on the roses, so there's going to be, as long as the rain doesn't knock them off, a lot more bloom in the garden. It's pretty colorful.
Great.
The perennial garden, the herb garden, just gorgeous.
Well,
just gorgeous.
I'm pleased to hear you say it's what I'll call back, because I was there with family, month and a half ago, and I was kind of following the the most prime bloom on the roses, but the perennial garden was excellent, and now, as you say, you're back into that second full big bloom, and anybody that has never been to the Park of Roses does not even know what they're going to walk into. So share a little bit more of that beauty with us.
Oh, I'll tell you, it's a 13-acre garden, and we have been promoting this as a year-round place to visit. Right now, we're going into the fall bloom of the roses, which is going to bring the color. And like I said, the perennial and herb gardens are just beautiful. The leaves are just now starting to show a little bit of fall color, and even into the late fall, even through the winter, the trees there are just outstanding, which brings me to another thing. We want to congratulate Columbus Recreation and Parks for being given an Arboretum certification at the Park of Roses.
Fantastic.
For all the variety of trees and the efforts that they are doing for reforestation. So the Park of Roses Foundation is just thrilled with that.
Well, that is, for those that are not aware, and we don't need to go too much farther, but that is a significant designation. It does make it a year-round place, and it's nice for the age and effort that goes into all of that, as well as the space that it involves, to be recognized as let's just say, a full-functioning year-round organization accredited by well, some very knowing people.
Oh, it is. And you know what? This is many, many, many years in the making.
Yep.
This isn't just something that is done, bang, and it's done. This goes back many, many years to the varieties of trees that were planted back then. And so we have on our website, which is www.parkofroses.org, information on the Arboretum certification, as well as you can view our garden even in the rain.
Hey, we like that. Nancy, once again, give us that website address again where folks can find out more information about the Columbus Park of Roses.
It is www.parkofroses.org.
Nancy, thanks so much for calling us this morning, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
And definitely worth a drive to Park of Roses,
Indeed.
Fred.
A day, well, right now, at least here in Columbus and in that part of town that I've just come through, it probably is not raining. It's a little dull and overcast. But what Nancy is telling us all is that garden would be even quite a fun thing to look at on a dull, overcast day like it is right now. When she talks about color in over a 13-acre area, and I didn't think to ask her how many roses now, but it's several thousand, and it should be spectacular even on a day like today.
1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's is the toll-free number. More from Fred up next.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Welcome its tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
And welcome back to the program. Let's go to the phone lines and say good morning to Dan from Zanesville. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to do it, Dan.
This is kind of a segue on your last commercial, but I know that it's important to do the fertilizing at least once or twice a year, but it's also important for old Dan's pocketbook if he can save a little money on the fertilization. So I'm asking triple 12, how would that go on the drought-stricken yard this year if I'm careful about putting it on, maybe trying to apply it before rain?
This, Dan, is a doable thing. Now, there are many, many reasons why you pay why you sometimes have to pay the greater price for a slow release or slower release and a different kind of breakdown. However, I can remember as a boy, my dad had certain penchants, and one was his lawn. As a farm kid with no appreciation for grasses other than to feed the cows, he developed into a lawn nut, and he used triple 12, or we used triple 12. It can be done. Now, there are reasons to save, and we all are painfully aware of those. But then there's a matter of the caution. You did mention that you would go and put it down before a rain, and that's okay. That hopefully then will be a significant rain. By that meaning, an hour, a shower of significance, so that it does indeed break the fertilizer down and get it down into the ground. If it's just what I call a piddling little rain, then you better go out and set up the sprinkler and finish the job. Because once what I call regular fertilizer releases, it's bad terminology, but it's hot. It can conceivably burn if it's not washed on down through the roots and dissipated, or let's just say dispensed more evenly. Dissipate's the wrong word. We want a good green lawn, not a dissipated one. I would tell you, with caution, this can be done. It has been done in years in the past, and fortunately, I guess I came along when old Mr. Scott was heavy into grass seed, then how to keep it green and please the public and so on. So I have indeed switched over to paying the bigger bill, or now even to have someone else do it, to get the uniform feed that a slower release gives. There is no harm to be done, pure and simple, unless it stays too undiluted for too long. So what will then happen, which is positive, you get a flush of green right quick, mow like crazy, and then it'll all go away again, and then you can do it again, both times in the fall, and save $1 up front. I'm not sure that you actually gain in lawn care, however. The longer, slower dilution and use is indeed a benefit. So squeeze the pocketbook.